Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing on Thursday, all kinds of different times. I've moved from Abu Dhabi to London today. If not my favorite place in the world, one of my favorite places in the world. I'm in a very good mood. So I'm a grade A Anglophile. Summer in London, it's spectacular. While I was waiting for this podcast tonight, I was taking in the BBC reality shows. It's unparalleled. Joining us from New York City, where he's back from an interminable time in Las Vegas, is Tim Bontemps.
Hello, Brian. I'm glad to report your bag made it with you to London. There were a lot of people in Vegas who were very concerned about the state of your luggage and where it was. So glad you got your bag back, and glad to get out of Las Vegas myself. So good news over here too.
The bag situation is still not good. It's not good to have your clothes sit in what I assume was 100-degree heat in Texas for 4 days outside.
What, did they melt?
They're not in good shape. I'll just leave it at that. Joining us, not from Texas, from a family trip in southern Vermont, we won't say where exactly because the people go down looking for him, is Ben MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. We were just doing ropes courses and flying down some mountain coasters a days. So far so good.
What's
Sounds
a
like you're
coaster?
It's like a toboggan run,
Oh,
yeah.
It's like he's in the Alps. This is what they do in
he
Switzerland.
sure is.
Yeah.
It's in the Alps of New England.
Yeah. So Team USA has moved to London. They're going to play the South Sudan on Saturday night. They looked very good in their most recent exhibition game, which was in Abu Dhabi on Wednesday, just throttled Serbia. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But today is the day that ESPN Bet, we've been talking about this for a week or two. When would ESPN Bet release the over-unders? This is always a sort of a referendum on where the team's off seasons were. And so we're at that spot here. ESPN Bet released the over-under bets today. Obviously they can move a little bit. But Bontemps, did you have a chance to look at these? Was there one that stood off the page to you?
Well, I'd like to start by making a wager with MacMahon because ESPN Bet has the Spurs over under at 35.5. So I think we should just make that the over under for our bet from the other day.
No, I mean, it's definitely
there was a lot of commentary in Vegas about the fact that we couldn't come to an agreement on a bet officially. So
I will say this. So the odds are out as well. And you can already tell there's a handful of bets that the sportsbook is sort of de-incentivizing, or I guess incentivizing you to take. And that Spurs over under, which we have talked about and gotten a little testy over, they don't want you to take the over. The over is minus 125.
Well, I think to clarify for people that aren't quite up on the betting lingo, the fact that it's minus 125 for the over and minus 115 for the under means that they're getting more action on the over. So they're trying to even it out.
Don't want is a little bit too strong. Right. But already there's people coming in over, like on MacMahon's side.
Yeah. More people want to roll with me than Bontemps. Is
that bet official, MacMahon?
Sure.
Done with that?
That bet's official. That bet is official.
What the bet? Well, what are the terms? I mean, okay, you've picked a side, but what are the terms?
We could sort out the terms.
Dinner.
Sort out the terms. I'm not worried about that.
Terms are the most important thing.
Yeah, dinner.
Dinner's fine.
At a quality restaurant.
Yeah, dinner's fine. Done.
Quality restaurant. Now, that's another thing that sounds vague on terms. That's
it's not vague. It'll be fine.
We both understand what a quality restaurant is.
That's right.
Okay.
McDonald's, good quality. So outside of that was the main one that I had immediately in mind. So I want to make sure we got that set. I'm looking through here quick at some of these.
What? There was actually a couple.
What stands out to you?
So top of the West, not a surprise. Oklahoma City, I believe, is 55.5.
Yeah.
That didn't surprise me. I was a little bit surprised though that Minnesota and Denver were tied for the second most wins for an over-under in the West, both at 52.5. And I found that to be pretty interesting because obviously the Mavericks knocked out Minnesota. I thought Denver got worse this offseason. I continue to believe that, although looks like they will end up with Russell Westbrook. Not that there was a whole lot of doubt about that. But the Mavericks at 50.5, I was a little bit surprised coming off a 50-win season. I do feel like, we can discuss how Clay fits defensively in Dallas, but I feel like it was an upgrade to go out and get Klay Thompson. So I was a little bit surprised that the Mavericks weren't a little bit higher with their over-under.
I'll tell you what, I just pulled this up right before the pod started, so I get a chance to really look at this. I think my best bet on the whole board is OKC over 55.5. I think they're going to smash that personally. I mean, They got better. The West got worse at the top. And I mean, they won 57 last year, and I think they're markedly better.
Yeah,
So,
honestly, both the number ones, the Celtics at 58.5, like, dude, they just won 64 games. Now I know they won't have Porzingis probably for the 2024.
Yeah, I think that's a total reflection of Porzingis.
And they had basically perfect health last year for the most part. They really didn't have anything happen. The top of the East did get better. Philadelphia got at least. I mean, we'll see if they're healthy, but Philadelphia got better. The Knicks got better. We'll see if the Bucks are, better with a year of continuity. But I love that. The one that stands out to me the most, love the Thunder over on 55.
Yeah, I'll take over on all of I-35. Obviously, I've already
You're
got
on the record for that.
Already got my money down on San Antonio. I do think the Mavericks will be over 50.5. I think they'll be somewhere in the mid 50s, probably somewhere in that 53 to 56 type of range. And then
you're not affected by the Kyrie.
You think they might win 56 games?
Yeah, dude, they won 50 games last year when they were.
Yeah, they had half of their team for the first 3
months.
Well,
let's devil's advocate. Let's set devil's, because I think
number one, Kyrie's broken hand. He's going to be okay for camp unless something strange happens. There's not concern about whether he'll be ready for camp or not. Kyrie's going, listen, when you factor in Mavs odds, you're factoring in Kyrie missing 20 plus games. You're factoring in Luka missing 12 to 15. You just kind of expect that's baked into it. So, the question I have again is, how can they come near playing the type of defense they did for the last 20 games of the season going into the playoffs? And that's going to be interesting to see. But I think they might be the best offensive team in the league next year.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the wagers where the sports book is already showing its hand on where they think action is going to come in. So the Bucks over under is 50.5, 50.5. And they are giving you better odds to take the under. They are I'm sorry, they're giving you better odds. They're giving you they're trying to get
You're not
action.
saying this very well. They're getting a lot more action on the over.
The
action's coming in on the over.
Yes. The action's coming on the over at 50.5. But I think it's interesting that these numbers come out basically at the same time. It was reported that Chris Middleton had surgery on both ankles.
Yeah.
Both ankles.
Well, surgery on both ankles. Gary Trent Jr. for the minimum was a great.
Well, that's a terrific signing for
them.
I mean, I would say, Gary Trent was one of these guys. We talked about Caleb Martin. There's a handful of guys that really misread the market this year in terms of how much money was out there. Gary Trent is one of them. And I think this has got a chance to be like Kelly Oubre in particular in Philadelphia last year. Guy who slips through the cracks, gets signed for the minimum after making in the mid-teens the year before, lands in a prominent role on what should be a contender in the East. He's going to step into the Malik Beasley job in the starting lineup almost certainly as a starting shooting guard. I think he's significantly better than Malik Beaslly.
Well, he's a better defender. That's for sure.
I mean, I think he's just a better player. He's a good shooter too. I mean, he's a good player. I really that could have been one of the best signings of the summer for Milwaukee, for them to get him on the minimum. He's a starting caliber player, in my opinion.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing they needed in a big way. So he's got a chance, I think, to come in, have a huge role, have a good year, and potentially go into the market next year Malik Beasley got paid this summer. Kelly Oubre got paid this summer after being on minimums. Derrick Jones Jr. in Dallas obviously got paid coming off being on a minimum. I could easily see Gary Trent whooping back up and getting into somewhere in the teens next year after playing in Milwaukee.
The Bucks really, they're going to change their defensive schemes. Doc Rivers hired Greg Buckner, who had been with the Cavs the last few years, who had some success playing with big lineups. He was sort of their defensive. I don't know if he was technically their defensive coordinator. I mean, JB Bickerstaff is a defensive coach, but they're going to change some of their schemes on defense. And so we'll see how that actually works. But they went into the offseason, knowing they were going to lose Malik Beasley because they weren't able to re-sign him. And they were like, we need another quality starter player. We got to get a quality starter player to add to our roster. And I was like, how are you going to get that? They got
lucky.
Yeah. And so there was a bunch of teams. Once Gary Trent Jr. came to the realization that he was going to have to try again next summer, and he was going to have to take a lot less, whether it was the minimum or, the taxpayer mid-level or something, a whole bunch of teams were on top of that and recruiting him. And the Bucks won that recruitment. Now, who knows?
Bucks pushed really hard to get him. That really put on a full court press.
And I'm sure they had to promise him a certain role because he's obviously going to want to be in a role where he's going to have a good opportunity to increase
the role is he's going to start and play 30 minutes a game at shooting guard between Chris Middleton and Damian Lillard.
Yeah, and get a bunch of really good looks. And, when you have a starting role on a playoff team, if you perform well in the playoffs, then you have a chance to do like Derrick Jones Jr. did and come off of that and get somewhere in mid-level-ish type of territory.
Yeah.
And like Derrick Jones, he's going to be their primary defender on the perimeter too. Some of that is by default because you look at who's around him, but he's going to get, when they're playing the Thunder, he's going to guard Shea. When they're playing, name the team, or that he's going to guard the best player on the other team a lot. It's going to be a chance for him to really show he can do that and hit shots. And if he does, he'll really get paid. Because
this deal happened July 15th or 16th, I don't think it maybe got a lot of attention. But considering where the Bucks were and what they needed, this was a home run for them. Home run for them to get this player at this, because they just didn't have many options. So, and the money is coming in on the over.
And then the Middleton thing, obviously it's not great that a guy's getting both ankles scoped during the offseason, but let's be honest, at this point, you don't expect Chris Middleton to play anything close to 82 games. He played 33 a couple years ago. He played 55 last year. If he plays 50, 55, such is life. But they do have a full year to build on with Dame and Giannis together. And obviously that was it was certainly clunkier than I anticipated last year, but I still think there is potential for that to be a great tandem, although Dame's a year older now. And then Doc will have a training camp. I'll tell you what, I don't want to hear Doc Rivers telling the whole world how hard his job is next year.
I don't think that's good form. Okay, so another number that was interesting and worth where the odds are, the New Orleans Pelicans. I can't see how it would be that prudent to make a bet on the Pelicans right now when their roster is incomplete and you don't know what's happening with Brandon Ingram. But their number is 45.5, and the book thinks that there's more money coming on the over. They are, giving you a much better odds on to take the under.
That doesn't surprise me a ton. I mean, look.
That's a reaction to, I guess, the excitement of the DeJounte Murray acquisition.
I think
their roster, they don't have a center. I mean, they don't have a center, and then they're going to try and trade Ingram.
If you're looking at over/under bets in mid-July, okay, you're generally looking at what the average Joe fan is thinking about these teams. And Zion Williamson is one of the 10 probably biggest names in the NBA, or 15 or whatever. He's a big name. He played last year. People are like, oh, Pelicans are going to be good. I'm going to bet on Zion to go over. I think that's more or less where that is coming from. I personally wouldn't bet on the Pelicans at all, simply because so much of their season is going to come down to just whether Zion Williamson is going to be healthy or not. And I have no idea of knowing whether Zion Williamson is going to be healthy or not. It seems to me like they're going to go into next season playing Zion at center and rolling it out there, I'd assume, with a starting lineup of DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, and Zion Williamson. that 5-man unit is healthy, they've got a chance to be as good as anybody, certainly offensively, in the league. And they could be an awfully dangerous team. But I don't know how they're going to guard anybody at the rim. It's a lot of pressure on Zion to hold up physically and play well. And, they don't have a lot of interior size. They have a lot of questions about the whole makeup of their roster. I feel like they're a team that, if you told me they won 55 games, I could see a path to that. If you told me, I'm not saying it's a likely path, but I'm just saying they could, if things really break right, they could be a top 4 team.
They've had stretches
I
where
could
they've
also
been
see
that
them
good of a team, but
right. And I could also see Zion being hurt and then win 35 games. Like they've got about as wide a range of outcomes as anybody in the league. So I'd stay away from it personally.
Of all the potential playoff teams, they've also got the most unfinished business to do in terms of off-season moves. They have to turn Brandon Ingram into a starting center for
I don't
them
think
to be
that's
taken
happening.
seriously.
I don't think that's happening before the season starts. I think Brandon Ingram is on the team on opening night, and I think that's their starting man. I think that's their starting 5. Murray,
I think they're going to have a hard
Jones,
time
Ingram, and Zion.
I think they're going to have a hard time making the playoffs in the Western Conference if they don't have a legitimate center on that roster. Because look, you might want to say, well, Zion might be able to play. Zion doesn't rebound.
I agree. I'm not saying it's perfect. I just think with where the aprons are and people not wanting to necessarily lock into their rosters and your hard caps if you take in more money, I think it's going to be difficult for them to get a Brandon Ingram trade done. And I would say as of now, I think that's the team they're going to have going into next season. And I think they're a team that you're probably going to hear a lot about movement-wise because you got Brandon Ingram and the guy we haven't mentioned, CJ McCollum. I don't know if he's going to start or not, but I would suspect he's not going to start because they've got to have Trey Murphy and Herb Jones start. Just have to. And
Trey Murphy not extended yet, by the way.
Well, that's another thing they could potentially have to get done. They have a lot of stuff to do. Well, and with the amount of stuff going on there in general, it's why I'd stay away from them. But I would say as of now, Brandon Ingram's on the team on opening night, and they haven't made a trade for a center.
So it's interesting. So JJ Redick during Summer League gave an interview to Sirius XM Radio, and he was talking about their roster, generally praising it because that's what you should do when you've just been hired. But he said that they really still need to add a big. I think the word he used was a bruising center. By the way, Anthony Davis looks spectacular for Team USA. He had 8 blocks.
Did we just shift over to the Lakers without a segue?
Just hold your water. I mean, is this your show? Just relax.
Oh, wow.
It's not my show. I was just confused.
Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective.
Yeah, I was just confused. I was trying to follow.
Easy. Stand down for a second. So JJ Redick is talking about how they need a big bruising center. Anthony Davis, first team All-NBA defense this year.
Not because of JJ Redick's vote. Go on.
That's true. Looks awesome, but and even though he's like almost never looked better defensively, you got JJ Redick out there on the record saying that we need a bruising center. And why? With the reason that they went after Jonas Valanciunas. By the way, do we think Jonas Valanciunas will be on offer from the Wizards midway through the season? Like I'm not, I wouldn't rule out Jonas Valanciunas eventually ending up a Laker this year. I mean, that's all I'm going to say.
100%.
So, all right,
or somewhere else besides Washington.
Right, we're digressing, but what JJ is saying is, you look at the Western Conference and you look at the size out there. You need to have that option to go to use that big guy, and you see what the way the Timberwolves had the success playing their size. So when you say that our best option is Zion at center, not that he's not a bruiser, JJ's making the point of where the whole West is going, and that these actions by the Pelicans go the opposite way. So I just don't think there's any way that this is what the roster looks like.
Well, and you look at what Oklahoma City did, bringing in Hartenstein, despite the fact that Chet Holmgren played extremely well at center last year, but their flaw of being a poor rebounding team did end up biting them in the butt in the second round, especially in Game 6, their elimination game.
Yeah.
Against Dallas, when Derek Lively II grabbed every rebound in sight in the second half of that game. I don't know though, man. This whole Anthony Davis is not a power forward in 2024 NBA. He's not. He can't shoot the ball.
He's not playing power forward next to another center. He's playing center, and Bam Adebayo is playing the 4. He is
Bam
a
Adebayo
center.
played the 4 last night, Wednesday night, and hit 3 threes. He made 15 threes all of last year for the Heat. He made 3 against Serbia. Serbia wasn't guarding him out there, and I don't blame them. But he kept shooting and making them. And LeBron was joking about calling him the Bam the Splash Brother or whatever. But anyway, so Pelicans being over 45 and 5, people seem to be energized by that. Here's another interesting one. Orlando, I assume on the back of the Kentavious Caldwell Pope signing being viewed as a big lift, their over under is 45 and a half.
No,
47
47
and a half.
They won 47 games last year, and they do have, like, listen,
Yeah.
you would hope. Now, Franz did not necessarily, he didn't necessarily take a leap last year, but he's a young player who
Don't tell the Magic.
well, listen, they certainly signed him to a contract that anticipates him taking a leap. Paulo is just in year 3, going into year 3, I should say. Like, he should be getting better. Suggs did get a lot better last year. Like, my point is, they've got a young core that I think it is reasonable to anticipate that these guys are still developing and improving. And then they went out.
Yeah, I mean,
and got
Anthony
a
Black
great
is
role player.
I mean, they're making room for some of their young guys. You know, they say goodbye to Markelle Fultz. You know, I think they want to make room for Anthony Black, who didn't play that much. He was their number 1 pick last year. So anyway,
Markelle could wind up back there just to be.
That's
just to
true,
be
but
clear.
they didn't prioritize it.
No, right. He just hasn't signed yet. That's all.
Well, I think they renounced him, so they lost his rights.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, they right. They probably did because of the moves they made.
So anyway, that's interesting. And the books are expecting they're incentivizing the under there. They think that there's going to be a bunch of bets on the over because, as you said, they won 47 last year and they signed.
Well, not
KCP.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's actually the other way around. People have bet the under, which I think is a reflection less on the Magic and more on what's else.
Sorry, they're incentivizing the over. Why do I keep getting this wrong?
I don't know. I think that's a reflection less on the Magic and more on the fact that at the top of the East, there's excitement about the Knicks. There's excitement about the Sixers.
Yeah.
There's excitement about some of these other bigger name teams. Orlando, to Tim's point, should be, you would think, as good or better than last year with the addition of KCP to their team, to a young team that should get better. Like, I would probably go over on that.
Tell you one I like that the Jazz under 28 and a half. I like that one.
Yeah, I like that one too.
It's time, and like you see with the Jazz.
Well, they're trying to. This is another one where the books are trying to get you to take the over. Much better odds on taking the over than the under.
Yeah, but this whole thing of, hey, wow, the Jazz were surprisingly competitive until the trade deadline, and then they just go into a full blown tank. No, it's time to just commit to the task for a full season. This is the draft to do it, and they've had a summer that points you in that direction. Again today, taking Russell Westbrook for the second time in like 15 or 16 months, taking Russell Westbrook at a lot less money this time, but using cap space to.
Well, at least they're
second round pick swap.
So there's a 3-way trade that's been reported by Woj today that's going to get done where Chris Dunn's going to go to the Clippers. Russell Westbrook's going to end up in Denver.
No, it's just a 2-way trade though, because they're going to.
Yes.
They're just going to waive him.
Are they cutting Westbrook?
Yeah,
correct.
They'll waive him. He'll go
so
to
they're
Denver.
cutting Westbrook for the second time in 3 years.
Correct. That's what I just told you.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
What? Okay.
Yeah, but to finish it out, you said Chris Dunn's going to LA, which had been reported as a signing. It'll now be a sign and trade with Russ, a second round swap, and some cash going back to Utah.
Yeah. I mean, the sports books recognize there's going to be some heavy tanking going on this year because of this draft class. So they're also trying to incentivize you to take the over on the Wizards at 22.5.
Did you see the Brooklyn one?
Yeah, the Brooklyn is 19.5, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to get you to take, they're begging you to take the over.
The bet, you have it backwards again. The bets are coming in on the over on the
Jeez,
19 and a half.
I'm
All you got to
struggling.
do is look at the number. If the number is
I am
minus
looking at it.
125, that means that the bets
I
are coming in
understand
on that
but
side.
I keep screwing it up.
No,
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
when you do it with the euro,
On
it's
my
totally
body
different.
clock, it's like 3 a.m. Just so you know.
It's got there's a second sleep update of the day, folks.
Yeah.
We're only halfway through.
Yeah. You mentioned Philly. I think the number is 52.5.
Yeah, one fewer than New York, which I found interesting.
Yeah, I would take the Knicks over and probably the Sixers under during the regular season. I think the Knicks will be pushing for every win they can get, both because of how they're going to be trying to play and because their coach only plays that way. And I mean, Philly could win 60 games, but it's probably like the Pelicans, mostly just to stay away. But if I had to pick one or the other, I would pick the under and just bet on their guys missing 15 to 20 games and being ready for the playoffs, if anything.
Yeah.
But
do you anticipate Embiid being all NBA / MVP eligible?
I mean, I anticipate it because I do think he will want to be, and I think my guess is he will come in around between 65 and 70 games. I would guess Paul George will be the same, but if he has somebody fall on his leg like last year and he gets hurt and he misses an extra 30 games, like, would it be a surprise? No. Like, that's just at this point you have to assume it. But that's less. I would say it's like the Pelicans and is more of a stay away. If I had to pick, I'd pick the under just on the odds. But I think the Knicks will win a ton of games in the regular season, and I think they'll be pushing to win a ton of games in the regular season. And I would bank on them being over that 53.5 number.
So 2 years ago, even with the John Morant stuff, the Grizzlies won 51 games. Last year, they had a miserable year on every front, won 27 games. Their over-under has them right back up in the top 6, it looks like, in the West, over-under 47.5. We anticipating a spring back there?
I anticipate a spring back for sure.
Well, they're gonna be a lot better than 27 and 55.
Sure.
Yeah.
Will they be a guaranteed top 6 team? I'm not ready to say that. I really do think, obviously, you're banking on better health last year. I think a lot of this depends on, is Zach Edey ready to be a impactful, a rookie who can impact winning, right? Which those are pretty rare. But
MacMahon, we think he's going to start, right?
Yeah, I do, because
I had this discussion with people in Vegas. I thought he was pretty clearly picked to start next to Jaren Jackson Jr.
This is a reflection of a Western team looking up and down the West, saying it's good to have a big giant center, even if there's some downsides to it. And obviously, you're not going to play heavy minutes with that every single night. But this is Memphis reacting to what they see as the trend in the Western Conference.
Well, it's also Memphis. It's Memphis reacting to what they've been successful doing in the past. Like, Steven Adams was a significant factor for them winning, and for all the stuff that happened with Ja, right? And people focused on the drama, and like Dylan Brooks was going nuts, and all that. The two things that really also torpedoed their season a couple of years ago was Steven Adams hurting his knee, an injury he never came back from for the Grizzlies. And then Brandon Clark, who's not a big center, but is their, sixth man, tearing his Achilles, rupturing his Achilles. And so, Adams, you cannot play Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 5 for heavy minutes. Ask Team USA in the World Cup, and the Grizzlies are certainly well aware of that reality. He just does not rebound well enough. And so they needed to get a big physical center to pair with him, which they've seen as a successful combination before. Before it was Steven Adams, it was Jonas Valanciunas, which I think Edey's much more similar to Valanciunas stylistically than he is Adams.
That's the guy Jonathan Givony has comped him to a ton. He's like, can he be a bigger version of Jonas Valanciunas? He's already a big dude. I mean, that's what he has said a lot.
And then Clark will play minutes at the 5, but you don't want a 6'8" guy coming off an Achilles as your starting center. And obviously that's not the plan.
Right.
By the way, David Purdom, our gambling writer at ESPN, wrote today that Zach Edey is the consensus right now. But after seeing Summer League, after seeing, everybody in Summer League play multiple games, Zach Edey is the consensus favorite.
We'll see what people in the league think later this month.
Yeah. And you know who most of the money's on?
The most money, of course, is on Bronny James.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to lose that money. I've found a new best bet, by the way, in the entire league.
Okay.
As I've now looked through this. The Golden State Warriors over 42.5. I will bet just about any amount of money on that. I think
just about any amount.
They won 46 games last year. They got I think they got clearly better this summer. I'd argue possibly significantly better this summer. And I think that line is crazy. I think it's a clear reflection of Klay Thompson leaving because people know who Klay Thompson is. And I think Klay will help Dallas. It's not any denigration of Klay, but getting DeAnthony Melton and Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson in place of Klay Thompson, the Warriors are a better and deeper team. They still have the ability to go out and add pieces potentially later this summer. We'll see if they do make a trade or not. They have young players to trade. They have draft picks to trade. That could be the same thing during the season. That line is crazy, in my opinion. And I think it's solely reflective of
they've got the
Klay
same
leaving.
line. They've got the same line as the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, I mean, they should not be 4 wins less than Sacramento and 4 wins less than Memphis and the Pelicans and all these other teams. I think
wins
there's a chance
less than Memphis.
Right. I think they finish ahead of all of them potentially, and I certainly think they finish with
I don't know.
I think they're going to have a better record than last year. They won 46 last year. I'm very high on the Warriors. I think that's crazy.
I think that comes down to what I say? I say the Warriors were not really a 46 win team. They had a giant weight on their ankle, and that was what happened with Draymond.
Sure.
Just like I think that the Spurs were secretly better than their record, the Warriors were not secretly better.
But this over under to me is solely reflective of what happened with Klay. That's people saying Klay Thompson left, they're going to be worse. And I think they might be better. And at worst, I think they're going to be the same. And they were a 46 win team with Draymond missing 15 games of suspension.
All right. So you think 42.5 is way too low for the Warriors. What do you think about 40.5 for the LA Clippers?
That's another one I looked at and I thought was pretty interesting, actually, on the low side. Obviously losing.
As in you like the over on it, you mean?
Yeah, except for, I don't know, man. Can you count on Kawhi Leonard playing a whole lot of basketball next season? That's the problem.
Right.
But if Kawhi plays 65 games, I don't think the Clippers are a bad team. I think they're a better than 500 team.
Well, the interesting thing
is can't bank on him playing a whole bunch of games.
The interesting thing about them too is if you're just talking about regular season wins, right? James Harden is not a first team All-NBA player anymore. He's still a very good player. He's still a very good generator of offense. And if you have James Harden running plays for you basically every possession with a bunch of defenders around him, which they do now have. They went out and got Chris Dunn. They got Derek Jones Jr. They've got a lot of long athletic defenders around him. They got Ivica Zubac at center, who's a nice player. I could see a world where even if Kawhi does play 45, 50 games because of this knee stuff, which, by the way, the biggest concern, to your point, is you see what just happened with Team USA. Is he going to be ready to go in a couple months when the season starts? But I could see a world where a James Harden team got him surrounded by shooter/defender types. I could see that getting you to 42 wins.
The one thing I would say is he's not really surrounded by shooters. Chris Dunn's not a shooter. Derek Jones Jr. had his best shooting season last year for the Mavericks, but he's not a shooter. So they got better defensively, but they're not going to be a great spacing type of team.
Yeah. All right. So these lines came out today. Let's see. I might check back in a week or two to see where the Lakers line might move, because that the sports books always artificially put the Lakers line higher because they know that the Laker fans want to bet the over.
The same people who are bet on Bronny to be Rookie of the Year
exactly
on the Lakers.
So I always say that when you're talking about a season-long bet on the Lakers, you almost could never get good value, because if you're right, it's artificially monkeyed with. So anyway, their number, I suspect will move higher because people are going to demonstrate they're going to bet the over. And this,
I think it'll stay where it is, and the line will just go up. Because look, 44.5, last year they won 47 games.
Well, we hadn't said that. 44.5 is
it's at 44.5. They won 47
Are they
games.
4 games better than the Clippers right now?
Well, here's the whole thing with the Lakers. If LeBron James and Anthony Davis play 146 games again, they'll probably win in the mid to high 40s, and they'll go over
47 this year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Those guys have done that once in the last 5 years. So I think it's more likely those guys get hurt and they win 40 games. But the 44.5 is just, to me, sort of just in the middle of, are their guys healthy or not? Like, I just
tell you what, I'll put the postseason win total to 0.5 and take the over under on that. That's where I'd put that one.
We're talking about playoff, like not playoff victories.
Yeah, right.
I will take the under on that, personally. Again, because if you're betting the odds are those guys are hurt and they either miss the play-in entirely or they lose in the play. Because again, as we've talked about, there's 12, 13 teams in the West that are going to go into the season thinking at minimum they could be in the play-in. Well, there's probably 12 that think they can be in the playoffs, realistically.
One of them that thinks that they're going to be in the top 4 is the Phoenix Suns, and their number is 46.5.
That's not top 4.
Well, I'm making a joke because ESPN said their top 4 roster.
Well, that's another one where to me, it just entirely comes down to health. And I mean, because I don't actually know the answer to this at the moment. Where do we sit with Kevin Durant with Team USA at this point, Brian?
So last night, Steve Kerr said he's, quote, doing more. Team USA has never wavered in their belief that he is going to be able to play, but yet he is not close to playing. And he said that, we asked to talk to him every day, and he does not talk to us because he's not playing or ready to play. And the last time he spoke to us, he said, I think you were there for this. I haven't spoken to him.
He spoke Tuesday. He spoke Tuesday the 9th in Vegas, the day before the game. Said the hope is he would play in Abu Dhabi at some point. He'd start to practice or whatever.
Are they still in Abu Dhabi?
No, we're all in London. And he did do a little bit on the court before the game yesterday, but it wasn't what I would call a workout. So, but Steve Kerr said he's doing more. So, I mean, I guess, that could mean a lot of different things. Steve Kerr had an interesting thing a couple of days ago. He said, well, we asked him about Kevin, which we do every day. And he said, we have a couple of weeks before we have to set the roster. And I was like, the 27th, they have to set the roster on the 27th. Considering they're already overseas, I would find it remarkable that they would call a player over. Unless you were 100% sure Durant was going to be unable to play, you're holding him at this point. But so I followed up. I was like, so Steve, you had a backup plan for Kawhi for weeks. Do you have a backup plan for KD? And he goes, no, we haven't even thought about it. So I don't know if that's well, he said, 30 seconds earlier, he said, we have 2 weeks before we have to set the roster. I was like, well, you mean the roster's not set? So, everybody's over here and packed for 6 weeks. So it seems pretty set. But
do they have Jaylen Brown's phone number? I bet you some of his Celtics teammates could help him out with that.
I bet they could get him on the phone if they wanted to, but
I'm sure they do.
But these guys are all, it's hard. It's hard at this point to see. I mean, this happened in the last Olympics. They picked up JaVale McGee about 15 minutes before they boarded the plane to go to Japan. But in that case, they were because of COVID, they were in the U.S. all the way up until just a few days before the games. Here, we're already out. We've already been out, for over a week overseas. So, but But anyway, so those are the over-unders. You can see those on ESPN Bet.
There's one more. There's two more actually find that are interesting.
Okay. Go ahead.
One is I really like Toronto over 30.5, which I know is a random one, but I think the Raptors are going to be trying to be competitive this year. They'll have a full year with Emmanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett. Like, I think their team is going to be decent, and there's going to be a lot of wins to be had if you're not one of the truly putrid teams in the East, because there's some really bad teams at the bottom. And it wouldn't be a pod without a Cavs corner update. Because I find the 47.5 for the Cavs very interesting. I'm curious where the Cavs expert is on that.
So, all right. So the Cavs so Darius Garland gave an interview to Cleveland.com during Summer League this week where
I didn't see this.
He did.
Talk to Fedor?
He did. Chris Fedor. He said, well, let me get the exact quote. I don't want to misquote him.
I didn't know this happened.
Yes. He said, I'm not getting, because, there was there was heavy speculation that he would maybe ask for a trade when, and it turned into when Donovan Mitchell extended his contract. And so that happened, and then there was nothing. And so he said, and here's his quote to Cleveland.com, "I don't want to be traded. Those are just rumors." So
just rumors that came out of thin air.
Yeah. So what I said in my Cleveland appearances this week or over the last week is he never did ask for a trade. That's true. But he was they were pre-trade demand stuff going on. It wasn't invented.
I'll put it like this. I think if San Antonio would have been interested in pulling off such a thing, he'd have been pretty excited about that.
Right. So Covey Altman, the Cavs president, has come out on the record said we're not trading Garland or Jared Allen. Darius Garland is on the record saying, I don't want to be traded. Kenny Atkinson is on the record saying he likes this roster and wants to have it keep going. I think this is borderline definition of insanity. I don't think the roster fits together, but who's to say what Evan Mobley will look like when he reports to camp? Is he going to be added some weight and be able to play more minutes at center? Is he all of a sudden
he can play minutes at center now? That's the problem. Is they've got a guy who has been an all-star center, and they can't both play center at the same time. Can he shoot a freaking 3-point shot? That's the question.
Is Darius Garland going to be out there showing that he's got his spot up 3-game working? Because if the Cavs thrived last year when Donovan Mitchell had the ball in his hands, and so if the ball is in his hands, it's not in Garland's hands, which means your best thing to do is stand over there and wait for the ball to be delivered to you and shoot a 3. Is Kenny Atkinson have a scheme or a system that is going to unlock them? I've seen this before. I've seen coaches come in and take a team, tweak some stuff, and all of a sudden they look a lot better. But last year, Darius Garland had the worst 3-point shooting season percentage-wise he's had since his rookie year. So, if you're asking me, do I think he's going to be a beautiful fit there all of a sudden, after summer? I'm skeptical. Evan Mobley never shoots 3s. Like, he shoots one a week. And, he had stretches and moments where he had some, but in general, he doesn't want to shoot outside. So I don't know, the Cavs are standing pat. I think one of the reasons they're standing pat, if not, well, look, there's probably 2 reasons they're standing pat. One, they don't like the trade market for Garland and Allen. Mm-hmm. And so they don't think there's a trade out there that can make them better. Not that they would say that. 2, and I think this is what they're going to say publicly in posture, they believe that their coaching change will change their fortunes. I'm not there yet, but I'm not denying that it's possible. I'm just not in that camp yet.
I mean, they also won 48 games last year with the same roster that didn't fit well. So 47.5 is not like some kind of crazy.
They won 47 games because they were awesome for 6 or 8 weeks when Garland and Mobley
when the injuries forced them to play the style that you've said they need to fit the roster to play.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a hot take. I'm not trying to stand on a soapbox and say this is the way they should play. I'm reacting to what actually happened.
Also, dude,
Actions
like,
over words, baby.
if this was 1998, that roster would be maybe the Eastern Conference favorites, but it's not. So, just
So,
it
I
is
mean,
what it is.
the top end of the East it's not the West yet, but it's pretty darn good.
It's better, and it's also extraordinarily volatile, right? Milwaukee is volatile. Philly is volatile. You could argue the Knicks are volatile because if Mitchell Robinson gets hurt, they have no size. Boston, will see about where their health is at as a group. They're obviously going to be awesome. Just where they're going to be at from a regular season win perspective. We'll see where Indiana's at, right? Like Tyrese Halliburton plays like he did the first half of the year before the hamstring injury. Wouldn't shock me if they won 50-ish games. We'll see where
With
Miami's
Siakam
at.
having
Jimmy
a
Butler,
training
in
camp.
theory, is in a contract year. That's an interesting situation to monitor. He could, if he decides to play 70, 75 games, not guaranteeing that by any means, but if he decides to try to get paid, they're going to be really good because he's really good when he plays. So there's just a lot of stuff going on, and it's unclear what it's going to look like across the board.
Yeah. Okay. So that's, you can see all that stuff on ESPN Bet. Before we go, thought we talk a little bit about Team USA.
Here comes worldwide Windy. My bad.
Yeah. Got to see them play 2 games in Abu Dhabi the last 3 days. Tremendous crowds in Abu Dhabi, tremendous crowds, record-breaking crowds. People standing outside 2 hours before tip-off.
And what degree weather?
It was in the mid to high 100s, but the humidity.
So it was like 150 to 180?
So I played golf
on gracious.
Tuesday.
Now we got a golf update.
Last year when Team USA played in Abu Dhabi on the way to Manila, I played golf. That was in August. I played golf, teed off at 6:30 in the morning, and it was warm. I mean, I played in Vegas in July many times over the years.
Were you wearing pants?
I did wear pants because in Abu Dhabi, it's sort of tradition. And no, I didn't wear pants playing golf. No, I wore shorts.
Okay.
I wore pants to golf. I golfed at night one night. There's a course in Abu Dhabi. There's several courses that are under lights, but there's one course in Abu Dhabi where it's a horse track, and there's a golf course in the middle of the horse track, and then there's lights on it. I did wear pants at night. No, I wore shorts, and so we played last year, and it was warm, but it wasn't unbearable. It was fine. So we went out there on Tuesday, teed off again at 6:30 in the morning. I think we were the first tee time out. And it was a terrible mistake. I should have known we were in trouble when literally all the members who belong to this course canceled their tee times. They had all like the cart had all these bags on it for the members' tee times, and then the cart guys were putting the bags away as we were going out. People were calling in and canceling their tee times because the Abu Dhabi residents were looking at their humidity that day, and we're like, nope. Second thing is the ranger was coming out like every 15 minutes to check on us, and they were bringing us iced towels and popsicles and like handing it to us. I don't want to say, who it was, but a fellow American media member. I don't want to, embarrass him. He was sweating so much that on the 6th hole, he had his credit card to go buy him another shirt in the pro shop on the 6th hole because his shirt was destroyed. And later on had to buy new shorts because his shorts were destroyed.
Because of sweat, I hope.
That's correct. And I'd never sweat so much in my life. Never.
What'd you shoot?
I was playing awesome. I probably had my best driving round in 5 years. I was playing awesome. And we got to like the 12th or 13th hole, and there was just...
You faded.
faded. I mean, it was unbearable. Like you had to like build yourself up to every shot. You had to like towel yourself down and like you'd walk up to the tee box and you were like panting. So the heat index was about 130.
Oh my God.
Because the humidity was in the high 70s.
Could have just done some work instead of golfing. Might have been a better idea.
Oh, you think I didn't do work in Abu Dhabi? Check
here
your
we go.
check your report. The heat index that day in Dubai was a all-time record 144.
Oh my gracious.
So we waved the white flag after we did come back and play. Like the 17th and 18th holes are like the signature holes. We did play those 2 holes, but yeah, I had to wave the white flag.
The World Cup is in Qatar in a couple of years. Does it get to 150 at some point while we're there?
Well, again, it's because it's the desert, but it's got humidity. And that's not what we're used to in desert conditions. We're used to our deserts being dry. You know what's worse than a dry heat? A wet heat. So we had a wet heat, and it was brutal.
And I had life for worldwide window. Just flying around the world, just playing golf, just hanging in Abu Dhabi.
Yes. So
life.
Playing golf, yeah.
I played golf today. I actually shot 7 under.
Frisbee golf?
Oh,
no, it was putt, but still.
That's pretty good.
I was pretty proud.
So
putt.
Everybody a resort with the same resort that Team USA was staying at. And in 6 days, I did not see anybody on the beach. I did not see a single person on the beach. I'm not saying that I wasn't looking at the whole time. I'm not saying nobody went. I didn't see anybody on the beach. So anyway, when we landed in London today, it was 77.
There you go.
So, slightly different. Anyway, so Team USA played Serbia inside. The air conditioning was working, but the fans were standing outside for 2 hours before the game. And I got to say,
that sounds awful.
Amazing set of jerseys on the fans there. Like they had jerseys, like there were DeMar DeRozan jerseys. There were Al Horford jerseys.
Wait, DeRozan, what team?
Bulls.
Okay, I was wondering. Is there a hipster vibe there? I mean, could they go all the way back to the Raptors for DeRozan? But all right, Bulls, fine.
So, His Excellency.
I'd assume Bulls, Warriors, Knicks, Lakers.
Hold
on.
He's got a His Excellency story here. Just
His Excellency, Mohammed Khalifa Al Mubarak, who's the chairman of the Culture and Tourism Department in Abu Dhabi, was telling me that it's about 85% of the residents are expats there in Abu Dhabi. So a lot of fans from across the world, and some Americans, obviously, but His Excellency was talking about His Excellency, by the way, is a huge Laker fan and watches all the Laker games and was giving me very nuanced takes on the Laker roster. And he came to a practice and he congratulated Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, and Derek White on their championship, but not
Jaylen Brown.
But not Jaylen Brown, but very begrudgingly did so because he's a Laker fan. And he went to college in Boston. So that something didn't connect there. But anyway, big fans, lots of Hoop Collective fans. So lots of people came up to me and mentioned the pod. And so I just want you to know I enjoyed my time in Abu Dhabi. I think it's a fascinating place. I think I'd like to go back, not in July, though. It was rough. But Team USA had a really good week there. They definitely are getting better. I can't quite figure out what Serbia was doing. So Serbia is in a unique, in my view, Serbia is the team that has the best shot to beat Ohio has the best shot to beat Team USA. And the reason is a couple of fold. Number one, the most talented team other than the Americans is the Canadians. But Canada plays a style that USA is very comfortable with. When those two teams play, it's not a FIBA game. It's an NBA game. They were very comfortable in Vegas 2 weeks ago. They were very comfortable, even though they lost that game last year in Manila. They're not big.
Right.
I think, yes, Canada can beat the U.S., but I love the U.S.'s chances 4 out of 5, probably. Serbia plays, they're huge. They can go 7 foot, 7 foot, 6'11" if they want to across their front line. They have arguably the best player in the world in Jokic. They have an NBA level perimeter player, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and Vasily Micic, who's, an NBA player as a point, to have two.
I mean, he's a good player.
Yeah, but for go find another European team that has two NBA guards. You're not going to find one.
Yeah, I mean, he was the best player in the EuroLeague before he came over. He's a good player.
And the other thing I think is really important is that Serbia is going to get potentially 3 shots at Team USA. 1 in this exhibition, 2 in the first Olympic game, they're in their pool, and 3 potentially for a medal. You get 3 shots at a team and hone your game plan. Like, look, Team USA is going to be heavily favored, but if you're looking for me to pick a team that I think can get them, I think it's Serbia. So I go into the game thinking that. Then Serbia sits a couple of players. They sit Bogdan Bogdanovic. I went and checked and see if he was injured. He might have a minor injury, but they're just resting him. They sat Nikola Moltenov, who is
Milutinov, I believe is how you say it.
Mulatinov, I think is actually, I said it wrong. Mulatinov. He was a former first-round draft pick of the Spurs, but never came over. And they sat another one of their, sort of rotation players. So I was like, oh, man, are they kind of like quasi-tank in this game? And then their coach, who's old school, their coach, gets a tech 39 seconds into the game, bitching about like the first call that the refs made in the game.
Setting the tone, baby.
Perisic is their name of their coach.
I know a Balkan guy who does that.
Yeah, Luka was like, all right, that's what I like to see. Then Jokic played the entire first quarter and the entire second quarter and the entire third quarter. So there's 44 seconds left. He didn't take him out. He was playing Jokic like it was game 7 of the conference finals. I was like, and by the way, Jokic looked terrible. I mean, he didn't look like terrible, but he just had a bad game.
Wasn't it a back-to-back for Serbia too?
Yes, a back-to-back. So like, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Now they didn't like play heavy zone or anything like that. They didn't, one thing that they did was they tried to really run even off of Team USA makes. They beat Team USA back a little bit, so they showed a little bit of a game plan there. But Joel Embiid started, and I know that there has been this question over whether Embiid's going to start. Steve Kerr put that to bed after the game. He said, Steph Curry is going to start, LeBron James is going to start, Joel Embiid is going to start. The other two...
That has been the case since the team was put together. I know people wondered about it. That's always been the case.
He's changed the other 2 guys in the lineup. Yes. Last night it was Drew Holiday and Jason Tatum. He's also started Ant Edwards in there. But
it's going to be Drew Holiday and somebody is my prediction. If Kevin Durant's healthy, I think it'll be Kevin Durant. If he's not healthy, it could be Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
But I think that's what it'll be. And by the way, for people rooting for Team USA, Joel is obviously not in shape. He's getting himself in shape. He rested his knee for a while after the season. Me personally, as someone who'd like to see the United States win a gold medal, I'm very happy to have Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo playing off the bench together, because every time they've been on the court, they've absolutely demolished people. And for all the talk about the world catching up to the States, again, when our A team is playing, we have most of the time had Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo, and Anthony Edwards on the second team. There's no team in the world outside the States that has 3 players that good. So there still is quite a gap between everybody else and us.
Steve Kerr has been hockey subbing where he puts 5 guys in all at once. And when USA does that, it's like the public address announcer comes on and goes, now coming in for Team USA, Anthony Edwards, Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis, Tyrese Halliburton, Devin Booker, and you're like, holy Moses. Right. I mean, like,
be the second best team on the planet, just walking on the court.
And here's the thing. Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis were both first-team All-NBA defenders this year. So The problem that this team had, which was defending on the interior, is largely been fixed. They
and by the way, even when Joel is out of shape, he still is enormous, and in FIBA can just stay at the rim and is an enormous deterrent at the rim.
Well, here's the other thing. They can switch, and they were switching on Jokic, and they were like, okay, we'll put Drew Holiday. Go ahead.
Sure.
Drew Holiday defended Jokic. Yeah, Jokic like made a move on him and like at one point lost him, but like they'll do that. And AD had 6 blocks in the game against Serbia. So
the AD Bam pairing, like I texted the group about that night against Canada, being at the game. I was like, I just hope this group runs for the next 6 weeks, and they just play for 4 or 5 minutes at a time and just murder people.
The Kentucky, really, that second unit is the Kentucky boys because you have Booker on it too.
Right.
So, yeah. So I think they're in a really good place. You know, a year ago they went to Abu Dhabi and they played Germany. And Germany pretty much had them on the ropes. And Ant Edwards got hot in the second half and carried them to a win. And after the game, there was a lot of excitement about Ant, and Steve Kerr, you know, gave him a Valentine, and Ant was really blooming into the player that we know at that point. But what really happened in that game was Germany was like, you know what? We were really close.
Yeah.
And 2.5 weeks later, when they played in the World semifinals, Germany had a lot of momentum and a lot of belief in that game, and they played that way. Serbia did not.
That team had Cam Johnson and Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges, and
Josh
like,
Hart was the
very
starting
good players, but not a team full of all NBA players, which is what this team is, and Hall of Famers all over the place.
The starting lineup of the game yesterday, when you include Jokic, had 10 MVPs on it, 10 MVP awards on it. Because you had LeBron with 4, Steph with 2, Embiid with 1, Jokic with 3. And there was another one sit on the bench with Durant, who was out with injury.
Right.
Go find me another time when there's been 10 MVP awards on the court. I'm sure it's happened, but it's.
I'd have to look at Dream Team.
Well, it happened with the Dream Team because they had like 20 at different points.
Yeah.
Fine. Yes. How many did the other team have?
Right.
So until they meet again, but Serbia did not walk away from this game. Although Philip Parasev, I think is how you pronounce his name. He used to play at Gonzaga. He said after the game, he's like, you know, from a skill standpoint, I think we're close. And Joe Varden from that.
It's just that athleticism.
He said that, and then he answered like 4 or 5 questions in Serbian. And then Joe Varden from the Athletic was like, excuse me, could you go back to English real quick?
Petrosev, who was on the Sixers at one point and briefly, and then went back to Olympiacos. He played in the NBA last year. I think he played a couple of. Yeah, he's with the Kings and the Sixers briefly, and then he went back to Olympiacos.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see Serbia again here in about 10 days. They're not going to be challenged as much this next game, South Sudan on Saturday night. It's a great story, the South Sudan qualifying. They will play the South Sudan in Lille in France in about 12 days. And then on Monday night, they will play Germany in a rematch of the semifinals from last year. Germany is more of a threat, obviously, but this United States team is built so much better to handle the Germans. So we'll see.
The Germans and everybody else.
That's right. We'll see how Dennis Schroeder does against Drew Holiday.
A little bit different.
He'll probably do about as well as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did. Again, it's just, this is not. Doesn't mean Team USA can't lose. Doesn't mean somebody can't shoot the lights out. But it's just generally not a fair fight when you're looking at these teams.
They are. Let's put it this way: compared to the 2019 team when the World Cup that I covered, they finished 6th. The 2021 team for the Olympics, where they lost twice in exhibition play and then lost their first game and squeaked it out. Last year's team, which won their exhibition games, but shakily, this team is in another league, which is not surprising based on the roster, but they still have to do it. And they are in another league, and it is, and so they are. I do still believe that this is going to be that quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, that week of basketball will be, I still believe, the most competitive in the history of the Olympics. doesn't mean Team USA can't.
It might be.
Flex its muscle.
I just think we're 4 years away from it really being a potential threat. When you got Canada, it's 4 years older. When you got France, in particular.
Yeah, France's young guards able to
The
develop.
thing
Like
is,
Nolan Traore, by that point, will be 4 years into the NBA.
Yeah.
Like then it's gonna maybe, and some of these other guys like LeBron won't be playing, Steph won't be playing, like Embiid probably not playing again. Like a lot of these guys on the Team USA side age out. Then we'll see.
Yeah. The thing is, France, which was a team that I was really looking at to be a serious contender for, to try to push the U.S. because they did push the U.S. They beat them twice in the last 5 years, once in the Olympics in Tokyo. They haven't blown. They had a couple of good performances coming out of the gate. Then they played Serbia, and Serbia beat them.
The guards just aren't very good. That's the problem.
Yeah. Serbia then came to Abu Dhabi and lost 2 games. Lost to the Australians and the US.
Like if you put Bogdan Bogdanovic and Vasilij Micic with Rudy Gobert, Victor Wembanyama, I could give them a fighting chance of making it a really competitive game with Team USA in France. But the French guards are in a rough place. And like I'm bummed they didn't put Nolan Traore, who's a kid you're going to hear a lot about over the next year, because he's going to be a top 5 pick almost certainly in what is a very loaded 25 draft with Cooper Flagg and these other guys we've talked about. Like, he should have been on this team. I mean, Killian Hayes, as much as we've bagged on Killian Hayes, he should have been on the
I was
French
going to say,
team.
Poor Killian Hayes had to listen to you slander him for his entire NBA career and doesn't even make the French national team.
I mean, he didn't make it. Ousmane Dieng isn't on the team. Like, there's a lot of guys who should be on that team that are not for political, whatever, various reasons that probably would give them a better chance. That 3 or 4 years from now, when they've had that much more seasoning and they're all in their mid-20s, when we're in the LA Olympics, I think there's got a chance to be some Titanic showdowns there.
Yeah. All right. More of that to come. So thank you to Jackson, our producer. Thank you to MacMahon, who took some time out from his family trip to do this. Thank you to Bontemps from hosting family in New York to do this. And I'm very excited because Saturday afternoon, guys, I'm going to go to a Tottenham Hotspur preseason
say more golf.
fixture.
That's what I thought I was going to say.
Well, we got the Open Championship
Good
today. A bucket list item. I got to watch the Open on Sky. It's nothing to watch the Open when you're in the UK.
I thought he was going to say he got a private jet up to wherever it is. Where is it this year? I don't know. I honestly don't know.
It's in Scotland at Troon.
Oh, it's a Troon. Okay.
No, I got a public jet from Dubai to London is what I got today. But gonna go see not the Spurs. Gonna go see Spurs on Saturday. Play against QPR. QPR is, MacMahon?
I have no earthly idea.
Called Queens Park Rangers.
Queens Park Rangers.
Soccer team, football team, proper football team.
Proper football. I'm gonna go see that, and so it's gonna is in London. Very much looking forward to it, and we'll be talking to you early next week. Thank you for watching and listening to Hoop Collective.
Just want to add one little thing for the listeners, because I think they'll enjoy this. MacMahon Windhorst was texting me yesterday, and he said, "Oh, I just discovered this Tottenham QPR game is happening on Saturday."
I didn't know about
for the fans at home. Windhorst, very big Tottenham fan, legitimately so, and I said, "Are you going to be able to go?" He said, "I'm making it work." I said, "Oh, that's great." And he goes, "I know how to roll in London."
Oh,
I do.
Right, buddy. There we go.
I do. It's like one of my homes away from home.
Listen,
how do
know how to
you
roll
say
everywhere.
adios,
That's why you're
amigos?
worldwide window. You got connections in the Middle East. You got connections in London. You got connections in Omaha. You got connections everywhere.
How
With
do
all
you
due
say
respect, all
adios,
of that-
amigos in London?
You just said it. With all due respect, that's true. With all due respect, I mean, I know how to roll in Abu Dhabi, and I know how to roll in London.
Oh, there we go.
Are you going to be? Do you have box seats?
Mike, it's not. I mean,
It's a simple
That's
question.
a yes.
Yes or no?
Are you-
That's a yes.
the last time I attended a Tottenham game in London, I sat in the owner's box
Oh well.
of the stadium I was in.
Well.
So I mean, he's challenging me. He's mocking me like I don't know what I'm doing here.
I'm
Who is
just
mocking
saying,
you? I wasn't
you
mocking
are.
you at all.
You are.
Nobody, you'll be sipping tea with your little pinky
No,
out
I
and
was
enjoying
telling.
the game.
No.
The
I wasn't
match,
mocking
whatever
you.
they call it.
First of all, I wasn't mocking you at all. I was telling the listeners.
Yes, you were.
Because
Yes, you
the listeners appreciate that you are Worldwide Window and can roll in all these places. They like to hear these stories.
Yes. So we'll have a full report. Also, I have a special, I can't say what I'm doing, but I have a special side trip planned for Monday.
Uh-oh.
A special by a pod listener who's happens to be a very powerful, successful person in the entertainment industry. And I have a special invitation that I'm going to take advantage of on Monday. I'm planning on it. Maybe I'll tell you about it next week. But I've got, just there may be some A-list material that I'm, doing here. So can't be bothered with LeBron and Steph. Got something else I got to do.
Well, again,
see
there's no fun being made. The listeners like to know about your travels. So now they know.
We'll see. Got some, the golf clubs made it. Got some golf here in England lined up. Lots of work on Team USA. That comes first. Practice tomorrow here in London. Game
Bosses,
Saturday.
you listening? You listening? We got some work happening tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right.
Amid the junkets.
Yes, there are some junkets going on here in London. I'm not going to lie, but it's my favorite place. So when else am I going to get to be here?
Hey, listen,
covering Team USA?
London's one of the world's greatest cities. It might be the second greatest city. So it's a great place.
One of us is spending like a month in Europe this summer, MacMahon, and I guess it is me, but it's somebody else is spending like a month.
So two of us.
I'm spending 2 weeks in Europe on vacation. Let's settle down.
No vacations happening over here. All work.
No.
Thank you for watching, listening to
Yes.
Hoop Collective. We'll talk to you soon.
Adios, amigos.